You get 3 rolls on this dice tower here, and each number corresponds to a random question that I have.
Okay.
So, first roll of 3.
And first roll of 3.
Yes.
Okay. And do I roll it like in here?
Up here.
Okay.
And then it shoots out into the grass. It's supposed to look like the Jurassic Park game.
I saw that reference. The bones, my history,
Yes.
I imagine.
Oh, yes. All right. This question is called Scream, and that means I can only be asking one question right now. What's your favorite scary movie?
Oh. I'm gonna say, Halloween. Is it a scary movie?
Oh, yes.
Okay, then yes, Halloween.
It's one of the one of the classic slasher movies that I think has stood up the best all of this time.
Yes, and it has like such long history, and I just love everything about Halloween. The music, I jam to it. It's just everything about Halloween is encompassed in that movie. And
John Carpenter's score.
Yeah, indie movie making too. It's just, you gotta admire that.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
You made a horror movie yet?
Yes.
What am I forgetting?
Tusk.
Oh my God, that totally counts, but that's horror comedy-ish.
Horror comedy-ish, yeah.
Okay, I'll take that.
Yeah.
Tusk is something else. Tusk is a one-of-a-kind horror movie.
Yes.
I'll never forget asking my sister to sit down and watch Tusk with me for the very first time.
Oh my
She just
gosh.
like looked over
Did she
at
still
me.
like you after that?
She still talks about it to this day, honestly. Like, remember when you showed me that movie? I'm like,
Yep.
yes, I
That's
do.
the one.
Very much, and I promise I'll make her watch it again sometime soon. All right, second roll in the tower. Number 2. Ooh, this is an acting question. This one is called Never Again. What is something you did for a role that now makes you say, I am so glad I tried that once, but never again?
Ooh, what is something I did? Okay. There was one movie I did where I had to eat cashews, and my character was starving at that point, but she had to like eat and ration cashews for the entirety of the movie, and I'm pretty sure I didn't eat cashews for, I want to say 6 years after that.
I respect pushing them out of the diet after that, because I know when you got to eat on screen.
It's like a lot.
Yeah.
And just the connection to the cashew of this she was so desperate to eat it. I still have like a thing about it.
That is very understandable, very fair. Never again. All right, you got your third and final roll now.
Yes.
This is another acting question. This one's called High Low. I want to know an audition high, but then also not necessarily an audition low, but something you learned from a lower audition experience that then influenced what you did in future auditions.
Oh my God, I have so many of the lows.
I always try to sugarcoat it, but I know that's the reality of the situation with the job.
Yeah, that's what we do. We prepare ourselves to fail, and that's the way it should be. Because that's where growth is. Like, our whole jobs is to keep on growing and to become better. And do we ever become better, But okay, so one of my highs was Lioness, for sure. It was one of the best days of my life. I made an audition with my husband in my parents' garage, a tape, and then I didn't hear back for about a month. So obviously you mourn it, and that's it. It's gone. And then I heard that I was very much in the mix after a month, and that they were going to fly me out to Fort Worth to do a camera test and to read for Taylor. And it was with, I want to say it was like 7 other girls in the room, and this is, post COVID and post-strike. Like, I haven't been in the room in a very long time. And we were in like this room where you could hear what's happening in the other room. So like nerves were just eating up. But I got my earphones and I kept on playing Elton John, Someone Saved My Life Tonight. I just was like, I am going to fight for my life for this one. And my emotional well was going. And when I was fighting, it was the opening scene that you see Josie in.
Oh, boy.
So I had to really lay it out there and just literally give him a piece of my soul. And that's what I felt like I did. And once I finished, I was like, I left a piece of me there. If I get it or not, then it doesn't matter.
That's such a beautiful thing. Did you have to do that in your taped audition too? Did your husband have to play the Zoe part?
Yes.
That's an intense scene to be doing together.
He always signs up for that stuff, but it's great because like someone that you love is like, no, you got to do some more. You got to get some more.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So that's the high.
That's the high.
What do we got for a low?
Low. I want to say, oh gosh. It was for a movie Flight, and it was for a flight attendant role. And the breakdown, it was a Southern accent. And this was one of my first times. I was like, are they sure they want to see me in a Southern accent? I was like, you sure? I am Latina. And this was back then, you know, like we're not there yet, open-minded wise. They're like, yeah, absolutely, Southern accent. I was like, okay. I was like, all right. I took it very seriously. I love an accent. So I showed up with my accent, very much memorized with my lines. And they were like, oh, no, it's not. It's not with an accent anymore. And I did basically this. Like, I was laughing throughout the whole entire, because I didn't even know. I was like, I don't even know what's happening in this scene.
Like, I guess it turns into a high because now you got like a skill in your back pocket.
And then
when like time may come. I don't know.
It's so bad because like you start off and you're like, okay, no accent, then you're not doing the accent, and then you're falling into the accent again. Oh, it's treacherous, but so funny.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a new edition of Collider Ladies Night. I am so excited to welcome Genesis Rodriguez to the show for Lioness, which I told you, it's my new obsession.
Yay.
What is the movie you saw, performance you saw, personal experience you had, whatever it may be, that first made you say to yourself, I absolutely have to be an actor?
Wow. Jaws. It scared the bejesus out of me, and I was obviously terrified of swimming in like a pool after that. But that movie was, you know, life-changing for a kid. Mm-hmm. So I saw the acting, and I really believed that was real. And my parents had to explain and over-explain that it was not real, and neither was E.T. for that matter.
I wish E.T. was real.
But I really, really believed it. And it's something about that movie. I just wanted to have a monologue like that. I loved it so, so much. That and Star Wars as well.
Good choice.
Yeah.
That's a very good pairing right there. You brought up Jaws, and I immediately thought of Kevin's next movie. What was Moose Jaws?
Moose Jaws.
Is that ever going to happen?
I think so. I think it's very much happening.
I remember looking up the IMDb page, and I think all it says is like Jaws, but with a moose. I'm like, oh, sold. I'm in. Especially from him and with like all of you.
Yeah. I think Tusks and Moose Jaws is going to become like its own thing, and it's going to be a mishmash of both those ideas.
Give me that. Give me that so then I can force my sister to watch all of it.
Your
with
poor
me.
sister.
I know. I put her through a lot. All right. So you recognize the dream to act. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of questions about what comes after that. First, kind of like from the crafts perspective, but then from the business perspective. So craft first. It is one thing to say, I want to become an actor, but I find that it's often a completely different thing to like really believe in your ability to do it. So do you remember the very first thing that you did that kind of made you stop and say to yourself, like I am good at this and I deserve to be here?
It was, I want to say junior high, and I did Clue, the play, and I was Miss Scarlet, and I really, it was the first time that I felt like, oh, I was somebody else, and I could be somebody else, and other people believed that I was somebody else. And I grew up with a very famous Latin American singer father, so I was always kind of like in a fishbowl, and I was kind of shy, actually, but once I got on the stage, I kind of became Miss Scarlet, and she was vivacious, and she just had so much presence, and I realized, oh, I'm not my dad's daughter anymore. I could be, you know, Miss Scarlet for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and it was so fun. And yeah, that was when I was like, oh, I think this is what I want to do. I want to be other people.
What a beautiful memory. I love that. So that's from the performance perspective.
Yeah.
Now we have to assess the fact that this is also a business. So you decide you want to pursue a career as an actor. At that time, what did you think was step one to making that dream a reality? And now having done it, would you recommend that as a first step to another aspiring actor there? Or did you find something more effective along the way?
I think the way that, so I was very blessed that I have artistic parents, and my father was like, you're not going to go out there on audition. You have to like study first, and like really, if you want to do this, take it very, very seriously. So they pulled me out of like regular school and they put me into all of the art schools. And every summer program, I would go to Lee Strasberg or Stella Adler. And every time I just was more enamored with it all. And they were like, okay, we'll let you audition if you want to start already. And I'm grateful that I learned so much when I was young. And the way that I did it was I started off in Spanish soap operas. And it's kind of great in a sense because I grew up over there. And I was able to have like a second life, and with all that university of Telemundo, as I call it. And I got to learn a lot about myself and my instrument, but also like, mess up and grow up. So I had a second time around out here in the States where nobody really watched Spanish soap operas. And I am grateful that I had that. But I do think that, at least for me, I wish I would have gone to my prom. I wish I would have had like a regular high school life. I started working when I was 16, and I missed out on a lot. So those are the one things that like I was like, But I mean, I was happy. I was working. So a little bit of sacrifice.
I get that. Well, now you just got to like, I don't know, make a movie that involves a prom.
I guess so.
Or something like that. I have so many follow-up questions. The first thing, because you brought up some of the acting techniques you've studied, and I'm fascinated by all the different approaches to acting there are out there. It's like a big, broad career question. What is a particular technique you've leaned especially heavily on since the beginning? But then can you also tell me a new technique that you've tried more recently?
Oh, wow. So there's so much preparation. There's so many ways to like break down a character. And I feel like the more you dive deep into a character or character work, you can go every which way. I personally, I did the Lee Strasberg thing. I think it is effective for me in certain characters, but not in all. I pick and choose what feels right. And really, I feel like there's no right way for going about what we do. I do think that what should happen is the preparation behind, if you have a month, that's lucky or generous, or even 2. But the more you work at it, the work, and for me, it's the rehearsal part, just like reading it out loud, reading it and seeing what you can find with it every time. There's going to be something different. And then you completely forget about it and you show up and you just hope that you're present and free. And the freedom part, I think, is the most difficult part for the actor. That's a high that I chase, where I forget where I am. And I forget what happened and what I said, and I was just there, and I happened to be, I black out, basically. And that's a good job. Like that's a good sign for me. If I blacked out, I have no idea what happened.
What an exciting feeling to chase. I love that.
It's a high.
I'll stick with this for a moment longer because I also love asking this particular question about like all the different approaches to acting that there are out there. Of all of the co-stars you've ever worked with, can you name someone with a very similar approach to your own, where like the second you met, you just knew you were immediately in sync? But then I also kind of want the opposite of that. Someone who, challenged you to adapt, and maybe by adapting, you tried something new and it was for the better.
For me, I relate to people who are trained in theater, who have been on the stage, who have trained that way, who have rehearsed that way. That's the way I like to work. I like to find it in rehearsal. I like to read it a million times. If I have more time with it, the better. And I find different things every time. So when I meet actors that speak that language of theater, that's like, I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna find something no matter what. We're gonna look for something magical here. And then sometimes, you work with actors that are method that I think are incredible, and I'm in awe because they're in it. They're in it the whole time, and you're like, wow, I want to stay in it with them. And it just there's a magic in the air that happens when someone is in it the whole time. That just raises the stakes a little bit, just a little bit higher. And there's a pressure, I think, a good pressure. And that pressure, that's when you're in it, it feels like you're going in a little bit deeper every time. I don't know how to explain it, but if someone's in the scene from before calling action, you're immediately on. So you're already acting beforehand, and that already just ignites. There's like a little energy that ignites the scene. That's as best as I could describe it.
Such a limited perspective, but whenever I've been lucky enough to go on a set visit, I always love being like that fly on the wall, like in the corner, watching how an actor prepares. And
oh my gosh.
I feel like some of the most marvelous viewing experiences I've had is when I see someone moments before action is called, already taking on that persona. And it's, I don't know, again, as an outsider and someone who can't do what you do, that is movie magic to me.
It is movie magic. And there's something, something that actually helped too when you're connecting with someone, just like holding someone's hand right before and connecting with them in that way, like as a human, just grounds everything and just makes it all like quiet. And we're just two people trying to connect in this scene and see where we go from here. One of us is going to fail at something.
I forget. I'm going to do a terrible job explaining this, but Thomasin McKenzie, the actress, her mother Miranda Harcourt is big into she teaches a lot of actors, and she was telling me once that there's a technique she uses with a lot of people where before you do a scene, you almost bow and touch foreheads.
Wow.
And just this idea of that syncing everybody up and I don't know, just getting you on the same level before you jump into a really intense moment. I found that to be such a beautiful thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. It just brings you really present and in the moment.
And it brings you closer to your scene partner. And when you give so much of yourself to these shows, these movies, and these characters, I feel I don't know. That sounds like the healthiest way to jump into all that.
Totally. Safe.
So I'm going to go way back now to back to telenovelas and soap operas, because one thing that fascinates me about kind of getting your start there is that so early on you get the experience of making 150 plus episodes of the same show. Yep. So curious for you doing that, because it's a wonderful opportunity, but I have to imagine it becomes more and more challenging over the years to kind of keep the character and the material fresh for you. So how do you go about making sure that that role in that world to play in is still stimulating every step of the way?
Totally. And in that genre specifically is really interesting. There's a reason why it's so over the top. It evolved from radio soap operas, so where we acted with just our voice. And we were told before we started a job, remember, this is for the audience that, they're cooking or they're putting their kids to sleep and they need to hear what's going on and catch up when they can. Or if they have you on mute, they're going to know exactly what's going on. So it's just this weird style of acting. And I always coming from theater, you can defend that. And it is fun because it is over the top. Even if you're over the top, you really do have to be truthful. But what was really, really interesting for me is just seeing what I was capable of doing. You don't really know until you actually start doing it. So I just like crazy scenarios. Like I was blind, you know? I was blind in one episode, and then a week later she regained her eyesight but lied about it, you know? just like, you don't know where it's going, but you got to play the truth out of that as much as you can. So that was, you know, fun for a young actor to be able to play those circumstances.
It's amazing. Is it then difficult to transition out of that and kind of retrain yourself for other styles of acting when you move beyond it?
No, because you know that that's not what you should be doing. You know, I mean, you fell in love with Jaws. You know what I mean? You know where ultimately you had to go. But this was a good training ground. And you know what was really great was for like the emotional life. I would say I'm an expert crier, and that's a gift that soap operas gave me. You would go through a range of emotions. Like you'd be laughing in one scene and crying in the next, and hated your mom and loved her the next, and it was so much roller coaster that you really got to know your instrument well. You got to know, oh, I'm actually really good at this, or I can work on that. And every soap opera was just a little bit of growth every time. And so I really took that skill with me. I knew what it was like to be on camera, what to do with your body, how much are you acting with. I was just very able to be free on camera, which is another thing. You know, it's different when you're on stage than when you're in front of a camera.
That's such a great takeaway. I've had so many people call those kinds of environments like boot camps too.
Totally.
Like everything happens so fast and so much that there's no better way to kind of like suck in all that learning really, really quickly. And then it spits you back out, and then you apply it to everything else you do.
Totally, because you could read a whole bunch of stuff. You can theorize so much, but then the only way you really learn is by getting up and doing it and doing it and doing it.
Okay, so the next thing you did after that I wanted to ask about was making the leap to Hollywood films. And, you know, after you wrapped up those shows, there were so many, Man on a Ledge, Casa de mi Padre, I can go on and on, basically. Of all of those early Hollywood productions, which would you say taught you the most about what you valued in a Hollywood set? And I guess, like, what filled you up creatively as an actor now working in that space?
I mean, I still appreciate so much when I get to a set. I'm so grateful. I don't take my job for granted at all, and I know how difficult it is to get there. So I just, there's nothing that I could say, I've gotten used to it or anything like that. I remember my first movie after my soap operas was Casa, mi padre. And Casa was a spoof of Spanish soap operas. And I couldn't believe, like, here we are, like, we're, you know, poking fun at this genre, and a genre that I did so much and knew so well. And I couldn't believe that there was crafty. And we never had crafty.
The amount of people who point out crafty is like one of the greatest things when they hit their first big set.
It is the best. I was like, it's free. It's free. And you can go back as many times as you want. And I just didn't understand, like, the trailer life, that I had my own trailer. I used to get dressed in the back of a truck with, like, the actors and the actresses, like, everybody just like, okay, we got a next scene. And it was like, you know, like acting circus. And we were like, okay, we have a third location today, and we would all like jump into one car and figure out how to get there. But it's I don't take any of it for granted. It's shocking and beautiful, and what I do, I feel so lucky that it's my job. I love my job so much. I love acting.
It makes me so happy to hear that. I got a silly follow-up question. What's your on-set vice? Like, at Crafty, what is like the food or the snack or the drink you turn to power through a long day?
Oh boy. Okay, so I obviously in this last show, like, my diet was very much like keto, like so much protein. It's incredible the amount of protein that I had to think about in a day. I was like, I haven't hit my 135 grams, 140 grams. But if it weren't, you know, like a muscle-centric show, Doritos.
What flavor?
I'm gonna go with the classic nacho cheese.
Okay.
Yeah, and Welch's, you know, Welch's fruit snacks.
Oh yeah, that's a good combo.
Yeah, like that as like the second. That definitely M&M peanuts.
Okay.
Power through.
I have a friend who is determined to eat all of like the weirdest of the weird chip flavors that they now make, and every single time he finds something new, I'm like, oof.
But does he stick to one, or is he just constantly?
Dude wants to try everything. It's like these weird chip flavors and also really weird beer flavors.
Oh,
like or like seltzers. Like they make like a Warhead seltzer now.
Oh boy,
no, I can't do it.
Not for me.
I can't do it. Give me like a classic like Cool Ranch Dorito.
Yes,
and like,
Cool
just
Ranch.
Like a basic Hefeweizen, and I'm a happy person.
Yes.
All right. Let's jump into Lioness. I'm so obsessed with this show. So first, a big two-part question about signing on. When you first got this opportunity, what single part of making the show were you most looking forward to? But then also, can you tell me something about it that wound up being more creatively fulfilling for you than you ever could have imagined at the start?
I mean, this job in general was it's hitting everything for me in terms of being able to share screen time with Zoe, where she's such a generous and present actor. Like, wow, she's giving every single take. You know, you never see her check out. She's just there with you the entire time, just giving her everything. And I mean, as a number one on a TV show where you're on every single scene, she's so generous. And I'm very, very grateful that I had such an amazing partner. Also, getting to change my physicality for a character, I love doing that. I always felt like I was more of a character actor, but I've never really been given the shots. I love an opportunity where I was like, you want to lose 20 pounds for this character? And yes, absolutely. And gain, 30 pounds? Yes, give it to me. I love it. It just helps with the complete transformation. So for this one, I had to gain like 14 pounds of muscle. Specifically, I had the 14 in my head, and I had never done it before. I was kind of lazy and mostly like a yoga, Pilates, and I worked out. But no, this was about lifting weights constantly. That was a lot of fun to see the transformation and to feel the transformation. And then I learned another skill, which I never imagined that I would have learned, which is flying a helicopter.
I was wondering if you really got to do it.
Yeah, I really did. I really did. And I was like, the first day I was like, is this really happening? Is this okay? Is this safe? And my instructor, Craig Hoskins, he's incredible. He is the most patient pilot ever. And he was like, oh yeah, you're going to be fine. And he just gave me the confidence, and I was able, you'll see in a lot of the shots, I'm really flying. I'm really cruising up there, and I actually really like it.
I always wonder, especially because sometimes we watch unfinished episodes where like it is not that, but then I watch other moments that are finished and refined, and I'm looking at the shot and the angle, and I'm like, but like, how can you do that any other way but real?
But real. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you have like a license net? Like, if you hopped in a helicopter, could you do it?
I mean, I technically could. There are hours that need to be flown before you get a license, but basically what I can do is cruise up there. I can take off and talk to the tower, get permission to fly around and cruise. And it's really, cool. It's kind of like once you hit a certain altitude, you're pretty much chilling over there. It's like cruising.
That kind of stuff fascinates me to no end. Like anytime I get the opportunity to like skydive or do one of those extreme stunts, I'm like, sign me up. That's like the next thing I want to
skydive.
I've skydived before. I want to be able to skydive solo, which you have to like put in a certain number of jumps. I would also love to learn to fly one day. Like whether it's a small plane or a helicopter or something.
I mean,
that's always something that's kind of been on the back of my mind.
Have you gamed like video game?
A little bit, not extensively.
It's the basic principle of joysticks. So like 2 joysticks, this one's going to control like the way it stabilizes, and then this lever over here brings you up and brings you down, and then the pedals are going to take you right and take you left. So you feel it. And it's kind of like an instinctual thing. If you go nosedive, you pull it back up, and
I feel like I'd be able to wrap my head around that.
I feel like you could too.
For the Top Gun Maverick at home release, they took a bunch of press people into like those teeny tiny planes, and they took us like not as many G's as he goes in the movie, but like close to it, and then it would like flip over and everything, and they let us like hold the controls, and there was like a driver's ed type pilot right behind us, so, like we couldn't do anything too drastic, but just like to feel all of that power in your hands is just wild.
Yeah. It's adrenaline. It's exciting.
It's really something else. I want to go back to the physical training briefly, because I am curious, because I feel like most people out there know like the broad strokes of like training and gaining muscle for a role, but it's so different depending on the type of role you play. So what were some things in your training schedule that were specific to, like bulking up to look like a soldier versus, let's say, like, I don't know, an athlete, a superhero, anything else?
Yeah. Great question. The whole point for her looking a certain way is because when you see her, you already know she's a disciplined person. She's routined. She does 100 push-ups a day. Her body is speaking before, she is. And that is a part of the character. It's someone that disciplined, that with themselves. And as a helicopter pilot, she has a whole bunch of like checklists. Is this button on? Is this off? Like, is the gas? Are we at the right gas? Okay, how are the rotors? She has this checklist the whole entire time before firing it up. That is the same exact thing with herself and her body. So and also like in order to transport a helicopter, like you have a little aid of a robot, but you also have to hold the back of the tail. You have to have some physical strength with your helicopter. It's like, your baby, you take care of it, you park it outside, you bring it inside. And that was one of my first things. It's like holding the back of the tail of a helicopter, see how that feels like. And you need to be strong. So I'm so glad that I did do that. And specifically while I was training, it was a lot of back, a lot of arms, a lot of this development. But I was training with Duffy Graver, who he is a Navy SEAL. So first of all, I am. I never lifted weights before, really. And I just didn't want to wimp out in front of someone that served our country. I was like, no, you keep going. And you better not look weak in front of him. And you just keep going. And sometimes I'd be like, sorry, I need to throw up. And I would throw up. And I'd come back and be like, much better. Okay, let's go. Let's keep going.
Good for you.
And he'd be like, yes. And honestly, I just wanted to make him proud. And each set, I would ask him questions. I would break down every war movie ever and be like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And what would you do in that situation? I would just get into his mindset. And that was a part of my preparation for that.
I don't know if you remember this with such specificity because you just brought this up. Do you remember any insight he gave you on a particular war movie that kind of stuck with you and influenced how you portrayed this character in this show?
I mean, I remember asking him about Lone Survivor. Ooh. And I think it was like the opening sequence of seeing the old man and the kid with the goats and what would you do? And we would talk about the mission. I won't divulge what he said and how he would do it. But once he gave me his answer, I was like, oh, it's the mission above everything else. And that is what the mentality is. And, but had that been the case, obviously there would have been no movie. There would have been no story behind that one little mistake. And of course, you can say that so easily in hindsight. But when you're presented the chance and you see, those two people, those innocent people, it's a hard decision to make.
She goes through that even in simulation in this show.
Yeah.
I have so many specific questions. So just in case anybody out there does not know, this conversation is going to include spoilers through episode 4. So if you haven't binged Lioness yet, go to Paramount Plus, watch them all, and then come right back. And the episode begins right here. Okay, so I actually want to go back to episode 2 first, because that's your introduction. And like, my God, you and Zoe are just at an 11 screaming at each other for that first scene. Like, what is it like, I guess, calibrating how hard she has to go at Joe in that moment?
First of all, that was one of those scenes where I blacked out. I had no recollection of what happened. We started off that day. We had that on the schedule, but we had Do You Love Your Country before that, and that wasn't scheduled that day. So we had just danced on an unscheduled scene that day, and we felt like so good about, something that wasn't planned out for her, and we felt great. And then the next scene was that intro, that helicopter intro.
They really just pushed you into the deep end with this show.
And they should. That's how you get the results. Like, you really do feel it. It's palpable. And, there's one thing of reading it on the script, of the chaos of, Josie lands on the Blackhawks. She takes off her helmet. She goes and she yells at Joe. How intense do you come out? When you see the whole, you see the Humvees just driving and you see all that chaos. And this is a person that, again, follows her routine very, very specifically. And this one mistake got 3 of our people killed. So, of course, she's going to fly off the handle. This is not a mistake that's taken, not seriously for her. It's major that 3 of her people from her base died. So she's going to be pissed. And what I really love is that helicopter pilots, they speak in like a very monotone, very calm voice, because they have to be solving problems the entire time they're in the air. But when you see her, she's not the helicopter pilot. She is really who she is, that explosive person you could hear from a mile away. And I really loved that she had both of that.
Truly one of my favorite character introductions I've seen all year.
Thank you.
Great scene.
Thank Taylor Sheridan.
Something else. This is more of a theory question, but I'm just curious. Do you think that the conversation she has with Joe after would have went differently if Joe's entrance was more appropriately done?
I would say there would have been much more of a chess game here, but as soon as she starts saying, I'm the highest ranking officer anywhere, that automatically just rings a bell in her and says, well, who the hell is that? And it's funny because she asks, are you Captain Carrillo? She knows who she is as soon as she gets out of the helicopter. She pays it no mind because she still wants to rip her apart. But still, it's in the back of her head. Like, why is this person here for me? And of course, Josie already knows. She knows it all. So it's all about covering it up.
So going to the next scene now, it's the, do you love your country scene, the conversation there. I don't know if you break scenes down quite like this, but do you have to map it out? Because one thing that really sticks with me is we don't see you tear up on that scene until she mentions the Lioness program, which, I have to imagine is an emotional gut punch to her because she knows what it is and she knows what it could take from her.
Right. It is that. It is, as soon as she hears the Lioness program, she knows what she's about to ask her. And she knows it's in connection with more of, her personal life, because she mentions, what happens to, Hernandez, Congresswoman Hernandez. So that no matter what, there was no way out. And it's a game of cat and mouse, and she knows that she's the mouse as soon as she says lioness. And that's why she doesn't want to say that she loves her country. She knows as soon as she says it, she's in. It's horrible. It's horrible.
It stresses me out so much. I don't know if this actually happened, but it did cross my mind. Did you ever have a conversation behind the scenes with Laysla and also with Taylor, I guess, about what it would mean to, I guess, pass the Lioness torch on? How via your character, the show could, feel the same, like it's part of the same operation, but also how you being a different kind of lioness will redefine the second season for audiences.
It's really great because with Laysla, she went through all of the emotions season 1, so she knows what I was getting myself into for this season, and so she was just so supportive and so sweet and just wonderful that she was just like, oh mama, today's a hard day, and she'd check in on me, and it was really nice because she had been through that. She'd been through the ringer, but I never, I was just so grateful to Taylor that he had given me this opportunity, because I feel like I hadn't been given this opportunity ever to really show all that range. And I felt like for the first time someone saw me like that. That he said, you can do this. And it was so validating. And I'm just so grateful, really, really grateful.
I'll be honest. I was nervous after binging season 1 because Laysla gives such a powerful performance and like really
amazing.
She's giving 110% of herself in every single scene she has. I'm like, oh, how you gonna do this again?
Yeah.
And like, keep me invested, engaged, and also keep everything fresh.
Yep.
And 4 episodes in, such great success in that respect.
Yay.
I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Jumping into episode 3 now. The particular scene I wanted to ask about there was the training facility that she has to go through. I'm just curious about the choreography there. How difficult does something like that become when your character is going through that and she's not even doing it well, where like you have to do the stunt maneuvers, but you're also having to convey the fact that, she's asking questions, she's making mistakes, and she's processing everything she's learning.
That was, first of all, just like I didn't know that there was going to be the strobe light, and I didn't know like how loud I would have had to do it. You figure it out on the day. So the beauty of it is that I trained in terms of like how to properly hold a gun, how to properly do all of my stunts, because once you know how to do it, it's easier to fake that you don't know how to do it, and not hold the position. You know what the right position is supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. So, I mean, I just had the greatest people surrounding me, helping me. And that day, I truly just let myself be taken by my environment, which is really, I think I got a migraine after that strobe light. It was like very intense.
I understand that.
It was like so hot and it was so intense, and we would have to yell at each other like right in front of each other. But I think it turned out really cool.
Oh, it's great. I just love the fact that your performance kind of sucks us right in, and you wind up being like the vehicle that takes the outsider through, because there's so many, there's so many questions you ask, and there's so many like little hesitations that you have that feel so real to me and so human, I guess.
Oh, good.
I like that quite a bit. So later in that episode, they're having the conversation at the table, and someone flat out calls her a mole. And I was curious about that particular reaction shot, because you don't do what happens at the very beginning of the show. Like, you don't lash out. You don't yell back. Like, you essentially do nothing. What is the decision behind having that reaction shot be more muted?
She already signed up for it. So this time around, like, I don't think she wanted to be a mole. I think what she wanted to do was like do whatever her duty was, but maybe not involve her family or just like, make sure that they don't get in trouble, because she didn't want to accept that. But once Joe keeps asking her to go back to her family, it just becomes I think it's an acceptance for her too, that maybe they have something to do with it. But I mean, to have to like turn, go against your own family is an incredible ask. You're not even being asked. You're being expected to. So that was different than the standoff. This was, let me explain. Hold on. No. I love my country more than anything. I've proven that to you. I'm here. I'm doing this, and I'm going to do this for you. She's like, all right.
I'm so stressed for her.
I know. I'm so stressed for Josie.
Here's another really, really big question, because at one point the comparison between survival and murder is brought up. I believe it's during the simulation, the VR part, and she chooses not to kill the hostage in the VR. And then in the next episode, she is instructed to kill the incoming cop cars.
Correct.
And she does it. Mm-hmm. For you, how do you have to kind of wrap your head around that moment and justify her willingness to do it in the real world?
She is this, black and white routine person. So this is a person that does what's right. And I think because there's, a doubt that she has of her own family, she goes to the extreme and she dedicates her life to her country. So this is the beauty of it, that she's not just like, not even thinking about, taking someone's life. She thinks about it no matter what. And she, these are cops at the end of the day. Are you sure? Are we on the same page on this? And she has to ask several times before engaging.
She asks so many times.
I know. She's like, just shoot them.
I'm glad she asked a lot of times. I respect that part of it. Yeah. I'm also assuming this is going to come up later down the line, too. It's like in the simulation, it's like technically like boots on the ground. You are kind of looking at the people that you would wind up having to do that to, whereas that's still what she's comfortable with, like long range firing from the helicopter. And
yeah, it's different when you have to do it up close.
Oh, things are going to have to shift for her. Yeah. So just to tease what's to come the rest of the season, of every single episode left beyond episode 4, which one are you most excited for fans to see, and can you tease why?
I think I would say episode 8. Episode 8 for me is really, really special. I think it is a feat. I think it hasn't been done on television.
Oh, that's a good tease.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. We're so long to wait.
I know. I'm sorry.
I'm so greedy too. I'm spoiled as press, where we get some advanced screeners every once in a while.
But you know what's great? Here. What I love about what they're doing is that they're bringing back the weekly episodes. It gives you something to look forward to. It gives you okay, I'm gonna take Sunday, and this is what are we gonna eat, and what are we gonna order in, and what are we gonna cook, and it's making it. Your movie night. We have the luck of having mini movies.
Yeah, and keeps the conversation going too. It's a show that clearly great thought was put into making. There's a lot of details, a lot of complexity with every single character in play, and that's worth time and discussion.
Yes, I love that.
So we've hit the last question of Ladies' Night. Every single one ends with this particular question. In film and television, we give each other awards. I think that's super cool. We should keep doing that. I find that nobody in this business says good job to themselves nearly enough. So I want to know something you accomplished making Lioness Season 2 that you will always be able to look back on and say, I am so proud of what I did there.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so incredibly proud to be a part of this show. I'm so incredibly proud that I pushed it as far as I could. And I can't wait to see how much further I could go. I really, for every scene, I thought about it a million different ways. And that's the beauty of having and working with Taylor, is that he gives you scripts in advance and you have time with them. So you really get to just break them down and really make so many choices that by the time you're there, they're just in you. And I I really felt like I pushed it as hard as I could, and I'm proud. Really proud.
You should be. I
Thank
can't wait
you.
to see more. I'm going to say congratulations on everything you've accomplished on Lioness and everything coming your way in the future. I know you said that you don't usually get opportunities like this very often. I would be absolutely like shocked and baffled if the industry didn't see you do this and it kick more newer doors open for you in the future, because this is next level stuff here. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.